first and foremost, I have quite a keen interest in astrophysics and cosmology, and although I don't understand quite a lot of it, it blows me mind, and I just find it so interesting. So a lot of influence comes from that, hence the name cosmology, of course. But there's also influence, of course, from some of my favourite guitar players, guys like George Bellis. Although obviously can't play like George Bellis, but in terms to approach to composition, development of ideas, sound and tonality, some of that's borrowed from George Bellis. Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree, that kind of thing all has an influence on us. Alan Williamson, he writes a lot of sort of, I describe it as film music with guitars, because that's exactly what it sounds like. It's epic, it's orchestral, it's uplifting, it's powerful, it's thematic, emotive. Get a lot of influence from him. And then of course Mike Oldfield, for the kind of quasi-prog, quasi-world music kind of element. I hate the term world music, but that kind of element that is evident in the album, especially on the song A Message from Earth. It's pretty obvious there. Guys like my good friend Fred Brum, he's been a bit of a mentor the past year or so, in a way. Basically, he's a prime example of how metal music doesn't all have to be down-tuned. It doesn't all have to be chug 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 on the low string. Also about creating an original voice. The album I was working on prior to this that never got released was kind of a bit wishy-washy, took elements of everything but couldn't quite glue it together, and it ended up sounding very generic and very similar to everything else that's already out there. And Fred really was one of those guys who kind of told us, look, sound, you want to sound like yourself. I always remember when he said, stop trying to make your guitar sound like a Strat. You went, you're not a Strat player. Create your own original voice. And that's in terms of music as well as tonality and things like that. Really, the influence draws from almost everywhere. There's a track on there that sounds like a bit like the Andy Timmons kind of ballad-esque type, really letting the guitar speak. Advice to people wanting to make their own album: don't do it. It's bloody stressful. No, it is a stressful, tiring process. It's great to release singles and stuff like that, but I think especially within the kind of guitar community and the progressive community, the album is still a very important and very cherished thing. I mean, that is a massive question, and one that... Hello, Dexter. It's a massive question, and one that could fill hours and hours of time, and I still wouldn't get to the bottom of what I did. I mean, really, the album's been in work for probably 2 years or so now. But I mean, I first started, I wanted to have a concept, and so I chose the concept of cosmology. I think it probably just so happened at the time I was watching a documentary about black holes or something like that. And I just thought, man, that's an inspirational topic, something I could write several tracks of music on. And so I just started writing. I use various writing resources. Sometimes I'll sit just with my guitar and doodle away and record an idea. Like that. Sometimes I'll approach writing purely theoretically, and then pick up my guitar and change it after. More often than not, it's a combination of both. I'm usually on, I use Guitar Pro 6, which is a great piece of software for getting ideas down. And I usually pick up my guitar, happen up on a riff or something, and then I'll put that into Guitar Pro and then work on further ideas, how to develop it, etc., approaching it from a theoretical basis as well as from playing. So that's usually how I work. In terms of the string parts and the orchestral parts and stuff, I often do that in Sibelius. I've got Sibelius 5, I think, reasonably old by modern standards, but it does the job great, music notation software, because I find the music notation in Guitar Pro to be a bit of a pain in the arse. In terms of recording, I really didn't have a kind of set plan. If I was to go back and do it again, then I would probably dedicate 6 weeks or so, maybe like kind of summer break, to just having no life and just recording the album, because I think that would probably work better than the way I've done it. The way I've done it, I started recording probably in about April 2011. It's now the end of December 2011, and it's almost finished, but it's been really bitty. It's been on and off. It's good working like that in a way, because it means when you fancy recording, you can really knuckle down and get on with it. But when you don't want to do it, sometimes time can just mount up, and other things, you have university commitments, work commitments, etc., and you sort of run out of time, and hence deadlines are not met. But on the flip side, if you were to sit down for 6 weeks and purely record through the album step by step, write down a list of everything you want to do, I'm not sure I'd really enjoy working like that, because I think sometimes when you're forcing yourself to work to deadlines, then the creative element can disappear a little. But I think it is important to have a balance of both. Obviously, this album has now taken 2 years to write and record, and that's quite a long time, but I mean, I have been basically doing it in kind of any spare time I've come across. So this part of Cosmology, yeah, but if you listen to just the guitar tracks there. Hello, Dexter. There's all kinds of fret noise and stuff and humming, and I mean, you could just strap a noise gate across there. So actually, I prefer to go in and edit the individual files, cut out the bits I don't want, run the risk of ending up with having a sort of too perfect take. But I like the extra control you have over just strapping a noise gate. Although it is more time consuming, I tend to find that this gives us better results. Especially within the kind of progressive world of things, it's important to come up with a kind of concept, or at least something that links your songs together. I mean, it's very simple to release an album that's something like, almost like a best of, even if you've never released an album. Just a collection and a collage of your talents and various interests, which was what my first album was going to be. There was some metal stuff on there, some bluesy stuff, some quasi-jazz stuff, some fusion ideas. But then I found, for me, I didn't like the way that flowed as a kind of personal representation of my own music, and so that's why I've decided to stick with concepts and themes. So Cosmology is obviously basically a progressive styled album. There's elements of prog rock and prog metal in there, and a blending of the two. Another album I'm currently writing is focusing mainly on the kind of funk rock bluesy fusion thing. That's going to be the second, well, hopefully the second album. It's a collection of songs that I'm working on. Probably got enough there for an album, it just depends what we're going to do with it. For me, the best way to go is to have a kind of concept, or at least a genre in mind, and don't deviate too far from that genre, because the album can risk sounding sort of too loose and not connected, disconnected. What was the recording process? Well, I can't do a 3-week-long video on how I EQ'd every single instrument on the album. But basically, I like to try and keep the guitars as simple as possible. So I like to record everything as dry as possible as well. So for example, with the rhythm guitars, I went straight, like, from my Chapman ML1 with the DiMarzio Crunch Lab in the bridge. That went straight into a Bob Burt clean boost set at about 1 o'clock. Oomph, a little bit extra crunch and a little bit sort of pressure to the tone. And then I sent that into the crunch channel of the Hughes and Kettler trilogy. With all the EQ, I think all the EQ was more or less straight up just at 12 o'clock. And as it happened, that's what sounded best when I recorded. I didn't do any miking up for this album. I tried a relatively new technique, or a new technique to me at least, which was to take the signal from the effects send, put it into my preamps, and then use cabinet impulses. And I found I got a better tone doing this against what I would generally believe. I got a better tone doing this than I did miking up the cab. just because within the confines of my house and where I could record, miking up a cab and having it really loud when this is a 50 to 100 watt screaming amp just isn't possible. So I used several RedWirez Cabinet Impulses and I found those gave me a great tone. I'm recording on a budget of $0 within my own house. I think the results are good. Obviously I probably would have preferred to mic up a cab and have, you know, real men play on 10, have the volume cranked up a bit and really get those speakers moving. But it's just not possible, it's not feasible. All of these got used on the albums. I've got the Bogner Uber Cab Impulse with Celestion V30s, the Fender Twin with Jensen C12Ns, Marshall 68 Basket Weave with the G12 M25s, there they are, the Matchless ES212 with Celestion G12H30s, and I've also got the Mesa Boogie Rectifier 412 with V30s, pretty similar in tonality to the Bogner Uber Cab, but using the Uber Cab or something on the left and the rectifier on the right. I think I used, it gives enough of a difference so the two guitars don't come. So the typical arrangement has around, I think it's between 30 and 40 tracks of audio and MIDI data, which sounds like quite a lot, especially if you haven't done any recording before. But when you consider the amount of instruments that's actually involved, you know, I've got guitars, bass guitars, full drum kits, keyboards, different synth sounds, orchestral sounds, string sounds, and so some brass sounds. It's not actually that many tracks, but it is a pain in the arse to mix. Finally nearing completion, and hopefully it'll be out by second quarter of 2012. Basically all I'm waiting for now is to finish the mix and start the mastering process. Finally, I'd just like to say thank you to those who have helped make this happen. First I've got to of course thank Chapman Guitars for making a fantastic guitar, the ML1 and indeed the ML2, but the ML1 is, I think it's all of the rhythm tracks on the album and occasional lead bits and clean bits came from the ML1. It's just a monstrously versatile guitar. The tones are unbelievable. So thanks to Chapman Guitars and their crew, especially Rob Chapman and Dan Davies, for their support and for believing in me as an artist. It means a lot. Hughes and Kettner amplifiers. I use the Hughes and Kettner trilogy for every tone on the album. Absolutely awesome. Bob Burt effects. Bob is a great guy building fantastic effects it come from America. I use the clean boost and the overdrive extensively again on the album. Clean boost especially on almost every rhythm tone I think on the album really tightens things up. And Johan at Valvet Effects for making the fantastic custom drive. It's just a true monster of an overdrive pedal, provided a lot of the lead tones in combination with the Hughes and Kettner trilogy. Thanks must also go to my friends Tal, Woody and Nick, who have helped me out a lot in my endeavours, particularly with dirtbox.net, but who are always supportive, always some of the first to comment. Thanks to all the guys of the Monkey Lord forum. I'm not going to say any names in case I miss anyone out. You all know who you are. You all supported me, and most importantly, last but certainly not least, is you guys who've supported us on YouTube, on Facebook, and across the internet throughout the past few years of making the album, for getting on me back. I mean, try actually getting this made and helping me out. And yeah, so that's Cosmology. Here's to the next one.